I woke up on the ground, cold, soaked, and choking on my own breath. It took me a minute to realize that the taste in my mouth wasn't just dirt, it was blood. Rain poured steady, thick enough that I couldn't tell what was running down my face anymore. My jeans clung to me, soaked through, and my right leg pulsed like it had a heartbeat of its own. Sharp. Wrong. I tried to sit up. Couldn't. The first sound I made didn't even register as my voice. It cracked in my throat, half scream, half sob, but it didn't carry. No one answered, just the wind shifting through pines and that hollow sound of wet leaves caving under nothing. I turned my head as far as my neck would allow and whispered, "Where are they?" But I already knew. They weren't coming back. It had been hours. My body knew that before my mind did. Hours of lying there, cold, bleeding, left. The only thing louder than the rain was the thought, they knew I fell. They knew it didn't start that way. Earlier that morning, it almost felt like a second chance. I was trying, really trying. The whole family had driven up to Ash River Reserve, some little trail town outside of Bend. The idea was Beatrix's, of course. My mother had this obsession with restoring our bond, even if the only thing she wanted restored was the family photo wall in her hallway. Valora arrived looking like she was hosting a fundraiser, not going hiking. She greeted everyone like she'd already won something. I showed up quiet, present. That was my mistake. When I asked if I could walk the upper trail alone, just for an hour, my dad looked at me over his sunglasses and said, "Don't get lost again, Mars." It was meant as a joke, I think. Maybe not. Either way, no one stopped me. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, 20 at most. I took the loop trail, narrow, muddy, but quiet. It was the only peace I'd felt around them in months, until my boot hit a slick patch of rock. My right foot slid out from under me. I reached for a branch, missed, and hit the ground hard. The sound was awful. My own scream echoed back at me for half a second. Then it was gone. I couldn't stand, couldn't put weight on the leg at all. I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket. Cracked. 1 bar. I texted Valora first. "Help me, I fell. It's bad." Waited. Nothing. Sent the same message to Mom. Still nothing. Maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was the fear finally catching up. But I could feel myself folding in on myself, slowly, like a paper figure softening under rain. My body started shivering. My hands shook too much to hold the phone. I curled into a ball, like that would stop the cold from crawling deeper into me. My tears mixed with the rain, and it was then, right then, I thought, if I die here, they'll say I overreacted. They'll say I wandered off like I always do. It wasn't just the leg. It was knowing they wouldn't come looking. That maybe they'd even leave me here on purpose. I wrapped my arms around myself, tried to focus. The pain throbbed, hot and sharp. I ripped a piece of fabric from my hoodie sleeve, pressed it tight against the bleeding spot on my shin. It was all I had. When I started crawling, I didn't look back. A branch snagged the back of my hoodie. I kept going, heard the rip behind me but didn't stop. That piece of me stayed there, caught, like a reminder. Later, it would mean more. But at the time, I just needed to keep moving. Days passed. I don't remember the rescue, just the machines, the beeping, the taste of saline in my mouth, the nurse adjusting my IV, the ache in my bones so deep I thought it might be permanent. They didn't come. No flowers, no cards, no footsteps outside the curtain, until one nurse brought her phone over, like she was showing me something sweet. "Look," she said, "your family was in the paper." It was a Facebook screenshot, town group post. A picture of them, my parents, Valora, her kids, holding wine glasses, laughing. "Blessed day with loved ones." The caption hit me harder than the fall. I stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. They knew I was gone, and they smiled. I asked the nurse eventually, because I had to know. "Did they even check on me?" She paused longer than she should have. "Your sister said you left early. Your mom, she never asked." I turned my face to the window. The rain hadn't stopped. Just like that day. I didn't cry, didn't move, just sat there, letting the words settle in my chest like concrete. The forest didn't kill me. They did. I woke up with a heavier head than the one I fell with. The lights above me were clinical, too bright. Everything smelled like bleach and gauze. I shifted slightly, wincing. The cast on my leg made movement slow. Tubes came out of my arm like tangled cords, oxygen, saline, something else. My throat was raw, my mouth dry, but what made me blink wasn't the discomfort. It was the silence. A nurse leaned in. "Hey there, you're awake." She smiled like it meant something. I tried to match it, but my lips barely moved. "Do you remember what happened?" she asked, checking my vitals. I nodded, then whispered, "I slipped. I fell. I called for them." She paused, hesitated. I caught that hesitation the same way you catch someone pocketing your trust when you're not looking. I asked, "My family?" She didn't meet my eyes. "Your sister said, you stormed off on your own." It took a full second to understand her words, and another to realize she believed them. I pushed against the sheets. No, I didn't. I begged for help. I texted them. They knew I was hurt. Her hand landed gently on mine. Not to comfort me, just to settle me down, like I was unstable. Later that day, an officer came to my room. Clipboard in hand, badge flashing under the fluorescent light. "Just want to make sure your statement lines up," he said. "Your folks already gave theirs." I frowned. "Statement?" He nodded. "They said you were upset during the hike, walked off alone, refused help." Refused? I choked on the word. I couldn't even walk. "Well," he said, flipping a page, "they mentioned you had your backpack when you left, said you insisted you'd be fine." My stomach twisted. "My backpack was with me the whole time. I used it as a pillow. I passed out on it." He nodded, calm like a man who'd heard it all before. Then he pulled out a photo, my backpack, neatly zipped, sitting upright by the trailhead. Like it had been gently placed there for display. "You recognize this?" I nodded. "It was with me when I fell." He raised an eyebrow. "I didn't put it there," I said. "Someone did that after." That was when it clicked. They staged it. They went back, moved my stuff, built a lie with props and smiles. I wasn't just forgotten, I was edited out. I asked to see my phone. Still cracked, still useless, but the cloud had recovered my texts. I scrolled through them. Valora first. "Help me. I fell. It's bad." Then Mom. "Please. I need help." Sent. Delivered. Read. No reply. No missed calls. No voicemail. The nurse saw my face and gently said, "Sometimes the people who should protect us, they're the first to walk away." I didn't answer. I just pressed delete. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't want to beg twice. The days that followed were quieter than I expected. Too quiet. No flowers, no cards, nothing. The room next to mine had a teenage boy. His parents were there every day. They brought him juice, sat by his bed, watched cartoons with him. I had silence. One nurse said they called once. Once. I laid back and stared at the ceiling. Something inside me shifted. Not sadness, not anger, just clarity. They weren't coming, because they never meant to. Valora showed up 5 days later. She walked in like she had somewhere more important to be. Her hair was perfect, nails done, smile plastic. "You scared the hell out of Mom," she said, pulling a chair closer. "What were you thinking?" I didn't answer. She smoothed her jacket, glanced at the IV like it was an inconvenience. "You know how this looks, right?" she said. "It's not good for any of us. Any of us." She leaned in, lowered her voice. "You left. You walked off. That's what we told them. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be." I kept my eyes on hers, not blinking. "If you'd just come to the picnic and kept things light, none of this would have happened." There it was. Blame disguised as concern. Control dressed in empathy. "You should rest," she said, rising. "And don't stir anything up. You're lucky we didn't press charges for wandering off and causing panic." She said it like a joke, but I knew better. She turned to leave. Didn't even wait for me to say goodbye. I didn't say a word until the door clicked shut. Then I whispered, "They said I walked away. Maybe now I will." But not quietly. The therapist had me walking again, slow, careful laps around the hallway with a walker that squeaked every third step. I didn't complain. I needed those steps, and not just for my body. Back in my room, the nurse offered me the remote for the little TV mounted up in the corner. I didn't think I'd care what was on, but the silence was heavier than usual that day. I clicked through the channels until something familiar stopped me mid-press. There she was, Valora. Perfect hair, expensive makeup, camera-ready concern. She sat across from a local morning show anchor, hands folded, posture straight. The screen read, "A sister's courage, speaking out after tragedy." The words didn't land right. Then I saw it, around her neck, a silver locket. "That locket belonged to my sister Mars," she said softly. "I wear it so I can still feel close to her." My stomach dropped. I'd never owned that locket in my life. She didn't stop there. She told them I'd been struggling. Said I'd been distant, withdrawn, hard to reach. Claimed I left the trail in a state of confusion, that my family was devastated but understood I needed space. I watched in disbelief as the anchor nodded sympathetically, calling Valora brave, graceful, a model of compassion under pressure. Social media lit up under the segment, comments scrolling at the bottom of the screen. "Valora's strength is inspiring. That poor family. Some people suffer silently." She was hijacking the narrative, turning my disappearance into her redemption arc. Then came the quote that clenched my jaw tight enough to ache. "Some people suffer silently. Others take their pain out on those who love them." A friend of the family had posted that under the video, and it was getting shared. I wasn't just being erased. I was being rewritten. The next day, a reporter called the hospital asking to speak with Melissa Durant. "Melissa," I corrected him. "My name is Marceline." "No one calls me Melissa." He apologized, said that was the name Valora gave during her interview, said it matched what was on the press release. A wrong name in a story where the truth had no seat. Not a mistake, a strategy. They weren't just ignoring what happened to me. They were removing me from the narrative altogether, smoothing over the parts that didn't match their version, giving me a new name, a new problem, a new silence. Back in my room, I pulled out a notepad and started writing. Times, posts, quotes. I documented everything. I checked the drawer beside my bed, still half full of things I hadn't looked at since I was brought in. At the bottom, under some folded papers, was my real locket. The one Valora claimed to have, scratched, slightly bent, and still smelling faintly like pine. I held it tight in my fist. "If you're going to lie about me," I muttered, "at least get the damn details right." Later that night, when the hallway was quiet, I picked up my phone and texted Emmy Hale. We hadn't spoken in years, but I remembered she worked in the building now, just a floor away. I typed, "Need to talk. Can't trust anyone else." She showed up in scrubs and tired eyes an hour later, leaning against the doorway like she half expected me to yell. Instead, I handed her the remote. She turned on the news. We watched Valora's interview again, both silent. When it ended, I handed Emmy the real locket. "This is the one from my backpack," I said. "The one they said she had." Emmy stared at it, then at me. "If you're going to fight," she said slowly, "you've got to be smart. Quiet, but smart." We sat in silence for a while. Then I showed her something else, a photo someone had taken of the forest trail. Off to the side, barely noticeable, was a shred of gray fabric caught on a branch. Emmy zoomed in. "That your hoodie?" I nodded. "They erased me from their story," I said, "but nature still remembers." That hoodie scrap became our silent agreement, a piece of proof they forgot to clean up. The next morning, we sat on the edge of my bed, building a timeline. Tweets, videos, timestamps, who said what, when. Emmy helped me install a secure recorder app on my phone. Every word mattered now. I looked at the screen, then at her. "If they want a narrative," I said, "I'll give them the truth they can't edit." It was after midnight when my phone buzzed. I was wide awake. Sleep had been optional for a while now. Emmy's message came in short and sharp. Come to the rec room. Now. I didn't waste time. Threw on the hospital robe over my clothes, grabbed my walker, and made the slow shuffle through the quiet hallway. The lights were dimmed, the world half muted. When I pushed the door open, Emmy was already there, laptop open, a USB drive plugged in. She didn't say anything right away, just turned the screen toward me and hit play. At first, it looked like nothing. Grainy, shaky footage from a wildlife camera someone had strapped to a tree. The kind that captures deer, raccoons, hikers who don't know they're being watched. Then there I was, dragging myself across the trail, dirt covering half my body, hair clinging to my face, my leg twisted at an angle I don't even want to remember. Timestamp, 2 hours after Valora said I stormed off. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. Emmy whispered, "The forest doesn't lie. That video, it didn't just show what happened, it undid everything they built." By morning, I had cleared half the wall next to my bed, taped the printed video stills, added my text logs, a calendar printout with dates circled in red, comments from Valora's posts, time-stamped screenshots. I color-coded everything, red for Valora, blue for Dad, green for Mom. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth laid out so clearly, even they couldn't twist it anymore. There was a quote I scribbled on the wall above it all. "You don't need revenge. Just tell the truth and stand back." I was ready to stand. A few days later, Emmy brought in someone I hadn't seen in years. Mr. Pruitt, retired teacher, former neighbor. He looked smaller now, older, but the voice was the same. He sat on the edge of the chair and said, "Funny thing, I saw your dad and Valora come back from that hike, just the two of them. No one said a word about you not being there." I froze. "I figured maybe you took another car. Then the story hit the paper and—" He looked down. I kept quiet, thought maybe I was wrong. I wasn't. He offered to speak on record. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't talking to brick walls. Someone was willing to say it out loud. They lied. They left. Meanwhile, Valora's PR machine was starting to buckle. She posted a new blog article, another glossy picture of the family, arms around each other, overly edited. We were praying in silence every minute she was gone. Except Emmy found the metadata. The blog had been posted while I was still crawling through that trail. "They're spinning so fast," I told her. "They can't remember what they said 5 minutes ago." Later that evening, we zoomed into the trail map. A friend of Emmy's at the ranger station had pulled satellite overlays. One image, clear as daylight, showed the branch where I'd left a strip of my hoodie. I pointed. "That's where I stopped crawling. Thought I'd die there." Emmy didn't speak. She just pressed a yellow thumbtack into that spot on the corkboard. "That's where your story starts for the world." We didn't wait any longer. That night, we sent the forest cam video to a journalist who actually had a spine. Someone who didn't chase headlines, just the truth. We didn't sign it, didn't attach my name. Next morning, it was out. The video made its rounds. Quietly, organically. People watched. People asked. Valora tweeted, "Stay strong. Some people just want attention." She turned off replies within the hour. I stared at her tweet and thought, they feel it now. For the first time, they're cornered. I lay awake that night, not with dread, but clarity. There was a moment, right before I closed my eyes, when I said it out loud. The forest remembered what they tried to erase. And in the morning, I asked to meet with a lawyer. The doctor cleared me for short outings, under supervision. I asked Emmy to drive me somewhere, just for a few minutes, just to look. We didn't talk much on the way. I stared out the window, knowing exactly what was waiting when we turned the corner. The Durant house looked clean, manicured, too pristine for the kind of history buried inside. The lawn was dressed up with white chairs and gold-ribboned tables, some kind of charity gala Beatrix was hosting. I'd seen the flyer, saw her name bolded beside Valora's, no mention of me. I hadn't expected balloons and banners, but I didn't expect to feel like a ghost either. My old bike, gone. Porch bench, gone. The shoes I used to leave by the front door, nothing. Every trace of me scrubbed out like a chalkboard before a new school year. Emmy leaned across the console. "It's like you were never here." I didn't answer. My hand was gripping the seat so tight my knuckles hurt. Later that night, back at the apartment, I found the flyer again on a local news post. Same phrasing, same fake warmth. Durant family presence, a night of hope and healing. The quote beneath it came from Beatrix. Family is what shows up. Family is what stays. I stared at that line until my eyes burned. That was meant for me. Every word, every passive-aggressive syllable, a jab wrapped in silk. Immy noticed I wasn't blinking. She didn't say anything, just passed me her laptop. I called in a favor. We went to meet with one of Immy's law school friends, now practicing estate law. He pulled up the Durant family trust, quietly, carefully. My name had been removed over a year ago. No phone call, no explanation, just one version of the document with me, one without. The house was no longer co-owned by the siblings. It belonged solely to Valora and Beatrix now. Streamlined, the lawyer called it. To avoid complications, I asked, "Is that legal?" He nodded, slow. "Yes." But it sure isn't loving. We didn't stay long. I thanked him, politely. I didn't feel angry, not yet. That came after. It came when I sat alone at home, opened a keepsake box I hadn't touched in years. It wasn't even half full. A torn photo strip from a mall booth. A card from when I turned 12. Valora hadn't signed it. A river stone I once painted with the word home in shaky purple marker. I held that rock in my palm and felt nothing. Then everything. "This is all I have left," I whispered. "Then I'll make it matter." My first tear didn't feel like a collapse. It felt like a crack clearing space for something sharper. Later, I opened the camera on my phone, pressed record. I didn't plan to post it. It wasn't for them, just a test of what I sounded like now. "You didn't lose me," I said to the lens. "You erased me." My voice wasn't shaky, wasn't soft. I played it back. Watched myself speak. Maybe I'm the only one who can write my version. I closed the app, but saved the video. Some truths don't need an audience, just an author. I dug through a stack of old photos, looking for something specific. Found it in a dusty frame behind other memories I'd hidden. Me, 9 years old, beaming with a red paintbrush in hand. The porch bench behind me, half-coated in fresh paint. Dad had helped me that weekend. Told me I could make it mine. That bench was gone now, not repainted, not moved, gone. They hadn't just erased me. They erased the history I helped create. I circled the photo in red marker and tucked it in the box. A quiet piece of proof no one would expect. That night, I wrote a letter, not to them, to myself. Inside, I wrote what I'd wished they'd said all those years. You matter. You were always worth the time. We were wrong. You didn't ask too much. We just gave too little. I folded the letter, slipped it in an envelope. Wrote my own address on the front. The next morning, I walked, slow but steady, to the corner mailbox. My jacket still smelled like antiseptic. The cast rubbed at my skin, but I held that envelope like it was the only thing keeping me balanced. As I let it fall into the box, I whispered, "Now, let's begin again." I wasn't expecting visitors that morning, let alone Dr. Odessa Kane. She walked in without the clipboard this time. No coat, no badge, no pretense. Just her, standing at the foot of my bed with the kind of look people wear when the words they're about to say taste like metal. "I was wrong," she said. I didn't say a word, just looked at her. My silence wasn't forgiveness, it was space. She'd have to fill it herself. She continued, "I went back through your chart. After day 1, someone accessed it remotely, added things, fabricated symptoms, false behavioral flags." I nodded once, slow. I didn't need to ask who. She already knew. I should have questioned it sooner. I need to make this right. Accountability doesn't shout. It stands still and lets you stare at it. I respected her more in that moment than any apology could earn. Later that afternoon, she emailed me the full audit log. Timestamps, access records, edit trails. I sent it straight to Immy, who dug deeper. She traced the remote logins, traced the IPs. It wasn't even hidden well. Valora's office legal portal had been used to alter my file. They hadn't just lied. They'd rewritten my injuries, reshaped my mental status, labeled me unstable to the hospital system, all before I'd opened my eyes. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was construction. This was a criminal cover-up. I closed my laptop and sat quietly, not because I was overwhelmed, but because the air felt heavier with truth than it ever had with grief. That night, I logged into an old email account I hadn't touched in years. It was mostly junk. Ads, expired logins, forgotten subscriptions. Then I saw it, unread, from Mrs. Beckett, my high school English teacher. She wrote, "I saw what they're saying on TV. I don't believe a word. You always told stories that scared people because they were true. If they ever try to silence you again, write louder." I read it 3 times. Then again, slower. It didn't fix anything. But it reminded me I'd once had a voice that mattered. I didn't cry because I was broken. I cried because I still existed in someone else's memory the way I remembered myself. The next day, Emmy picked me up and drove me to a lawyer's office. We didn't make small talk. I was done asking if I could do something. I was here to do it. I laid out my evidence, the logs, the timeline, the screenshots, the wildlife footage, the doctor's audit, the texts. "I'm not here for a payout," I said. "I don't want to destroy them. I just want the truth to win." He leaned back, looked at everything laid out on his table, then nodded once. "Then let's build your case the way they built their lie, strategically." Before I left, I slid a photo across the table, the image of a gray hoodie scrap caught on a branch, cold, quiet proof of survival. "Mark that one Exhibit B," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "B? Exhibit A is me." I stared at that photo longer than I meant to. That thread wasn't just cloth, it was evidence that the forest kept my truth even when they buried it. Back at the apartment, my phone lit up with a message from a blocked number. "You're making this ugly. We can fix this if you stop now." Then a blog post from Valora's company appeared online, titled, "Some people will do anything for attention." I didn't answer. I opened a secure cloud drive, uploaded everything I had under a folder labeled Insurance. If she wanted to play games, she'd picked the wrong sister. That night, I sat out on the balcony. Wind moving slow, air thick with that pre-storm stillness. I pulled up the old video on my phone, me practicing my speech from weeks ago. I watched myself stutter, pause, keep going. I didn't flinch anymore. This time, I mouthed the words with her. Me. "I'm not broken," I whispered to the night. "I'm the voice you thought you buried." And then I scheduled a press interview for the following week. Emmy handed me the envelope in the hallway, just before shift change. "You ready?" she asked, though her eyes already knew the answer. Inside was the USB drive, the audio, the one we'd kept buried for weeks. Valora's voice, unfiltered, candid, recorded the night I was admitted, before any press release, before she had her script memorized. I hesitated, but not for long. We chose a podcast with an older listener base, people who valued facts more than filters. No hashtags, no drama, just slow burn truth. I mailed the drive from a box across town. No return address. It dropped with a sound I swear I felt in my chest. The next night, it went live. I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, blinds half drawn. I had headphones in, but it felt like the whole world was breathing with me when her voice filled my ears. She always needed something to cry about. This time, maybe she won't come back. The silence that followed on the recording wasn't technical. It was disbelief. Then the host spoke, slow and stunned. "This isn't just neglect. This is cruelty with a smile." The episode played out like a trial, except this time, the jury was everyone. Comments rolled in, shares doubled by the hour. My name was never mentioned, but people knew. They knew. Valora's image began to crack, not because I screamed, but because I stopped whispering. Online threads popped up. I always felt something was off about Valora. She's always been too polished to be real. Then came the thread that hit hardest, from Kara Thompson. "She bullied me all through sophomore year. Teachers never cared. She came from a good family," they said. Screenshots, old photos, timestamps. It went viral by morning. I didn't comment. just bookmarked the posts one by one. For the first time, silence worked in my favor. Valora posted a picture of herself with a Bible on Instagram, captioned, "Jealousy is louder than truth." Comments were disabled 20 minutes later. My phone lit up. Text from a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. "She's spiraling. Be careful." I texted back, "I'm not afraid anymore." I meant it. Later that week, Imi invited me to speak, just a Zoom call, with a women's trauma group she helped run. I almost said no. But then I remembered Kara, the comment thread, the podcast. When the call started, I saw a grid of faces, tired, kind, waiting. No spotlight, no judgment. I took a breath. "They left me in the forest to die," I said, not metaphorically, literally. No gasps, no interruptions, just nods, real ones. One woman, older than my mother, spoke. "I waited 40 years to say mine out loud. You're ahead of me." I smiled, not for her, not for them, for me. "It's never too early," I said. "Or too late." That night, I opened an old drive I hadn't touched in years, scanned through blurry home videos until I found the one I was looking for. I was 7. Standing on a stool in the living room, reading a poem I'd written for school. The camcorder shook as Dad laughed. In the corner of the frame, Valora rolled her eyes. "I want to be a writer like Miss Beckett," I had shouted. I whispered it again now, as I hit download. No more erasing. I saved the file to a folder labeled Recovery. The next morning, I opened my email to a message from a journalist. Subject: Your story. Body: I want to tell it. The real one. Are you ready? I looked out the window. Rain again. Always the rain. I typed back. Yes. But we start from the forest. The courthouse looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had just gotten bigger inside. Gideon walked on my left, Imi on my right. Neither said much. That was fine. I didn't need noise. I needed steadiness. As we moved through the cameras and whispers, I caught my name once, twice. "That's her," someone said, but no one asked me anything. Valora and Beatrix were already seated inside. Front row, pristine, their outfits coordinated, like it was a fashion shoot instead of a hearing. I didn't look at them, didn't need to. I wore no makeup, no jewelry, just myself, neutral tones, steady hands. I sat down and waited. The prosecution started first. They laid it out. Clean, careful, deliberate. The pattern, the lies, the smear campaigns, the false records, the erasure of a daughter while keeping the illusion of a family. Then came the defense. They painted me as unstable, estranged, erratic. Said I had a long history of mood instability and frequent emotional withdrawals from the family. I heard Valora's lawyer say "was" so many times, I started keeping count in my notepad. Was loving, was difficult, was troubled. I wrote one word in big letters: erasure. Gideon glanced down, read it, nodded slightly. "Let the facts do their job," he whispered. Then came Odessa. She walked up calm, composed, sure. She explained everything: the audit trail, the remote edits, the fabricated medical entries. She showed the timestamps, the login location, Valora's office computer, her credentials, no one else's. The judge leaned forward. The gallery shifted. Even Valora stopped pretending her spine didn't have tension in it. Odessa looked over at me only once, when she said, "No, she didn't make that up. The edits were intentional." That moment didn't heal anything, but it planted something solid in the room. A truth that could no longer be outrun. Imi, from the back, live-tweeted everything. Mars Durant was trending before lunch. Durant family blog crashed under the weight of reposts. People were dragging up Valora's TEDx talk, questioning her charity's numbers, quoting her old posts with side-by-side receipts of who she really was. Someone tweeted, "Turns out the forest told the truth before her family ever did." I didn't smile, but I did feel something unfreeze in my chest. And then the defense dropped their bomb. They pulled out a printed email, supposedly from me to my mother, apologizing for causing so much stress and admitting to being unwell. I didn't even need to read past the first paragraph. It sounded like it had been written by ChatGPT on a deadline. I leaned into Gideon. That's AI. I never wrote that. Look at the structure. It's synthetic. He stood up immediately. We'd like to request metadata verification. The judge nodded. They scanned the headers. Everything about the document screamed forgery. The courtroom tensed again, but I stayed still. Inside, I whispered, "They're still willing to bury me to protect their stage." When it was my turn to speak, I walked slowly to the stand. I didn't carry notes. I didn't raise my voice. Every word I said was chosen like a stone laid into concrete. I did not walk away. I was left, and then I was erased. I showed them the photo of the hoodie caught on the branch, the original locket, the GPS logs that tracked every crawl, every attempt to survive what should have been a short hike with my family. If I stayed silent, they'd still be smiling. I paused. I choose truth. There wasn't applause, just a silence that felt clean. After the judge announced the court would recess for review, Gideon and I walked outside. Cameras, microphones, journalists. One of them shouted, "Do you regret taking them to court?" I stopped walking, turned slightly. Do they regret leaving me in the woods? That clip would make it on every channel that night. Valora watched it from the back seat of a tinted SUV. She didn't blink. The judge read the verdict like she was ordering coffee. Steady, practiced, exact. I sat still. Valora, guilty of defamation, medical fraud, and falsifying official records. Beatrix and Theron, spared legal charges but ordered to publicly retract their claims and issue a formal statement acknowledging their role in my misrepresentation. That word, misrepresentation. I closed my eyes and exhaled, not in relief, in release. Around me, the courtroom buzzed. Chairs scraped, papers rustled. But I stayed in place, grounded. Justice didn't come as a roar. It came as quiet. The kind of quiet I'd begged for in that forest, when all I wanted was a voice to call my name. Now I had mine. Valora's brand didn't survive the night. Sponsors dropped her. Speaking gigs vanished. Her carefully curated persona cracked under pressure, too perfect for too long. She posted a video the next day. No apology, just vague phrases, pained eyes, soft lighting, scripted regret. It took less than an hour for people to start making memes. I watched the video once, muted, then closed the tab. I didn't need her version anymore. That afternoon, a text came through. You win. I didn't answer. Some silences are earned. A few days later, I took a walk through Ash River Park. Early autumn had crept in. Leaves turning, wind shifting cooler. And then I heard it. A bark. Short, sharp, and oddly familiar. I turned. It was him. The same mutt from the forest. Ranger. Fur still ragged. Eyes still alert. He ran toward me like no time had passed. The shelter owner caught up seconds later. He's been different ever since we found him. Won't leave the trailhead, like he's waiting for someone. I knelt, scratched behind his ears. You're the only one who came back. That same day, I filed the adoption papers. Later that week, I sat at my desk and opened a fresh document. The post wasn't meant to go viral. It wasn't even meant to be shared at first. But I wrote it anyway. They said I left. I didn't. I was erased. This is me, reclaiming that space. I attached a photo, just one. The scrap of hoodie fabric tied around the same branch that held me upright when my body failed. It spread like wildfire. People didn't just comment, they poured. Stories I'd never heard from people I'd never met. Grief I could taste in their words. I was erased too. You wrote what I've never said aloud. Thank you for giving shape to the silence. I read every one, not for praise, not for proof, but to remember I was never alone in that kind of loneliness. A few days later, I drove out to see Mrs. Beckett. She had retired to a small cottage near the lake. We sat quietly, me with a cup of tea, her with her quilt over her lap. She opened my journal, read a few pages, then closed it gently. You always had a story worth telling, she said. You just needed the world to hush long enough to hear it. They can't talk over me anymore, I said. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and traced the scar on my leg, not out of shame, to remember. I no longer dreamed of the forest. I no longer woke to phantom screams. But I still slept with the window open, to hear the rain, just in case it ever came back to tell me something new. That scar hadn't faded, probably never would. But it belonged to me now, just like the story. I gathered the old locket, the photo of the red bench, and placed them in a glass shadow box. They didn't hurt anymore. They just reminded me where I started and where I refused to stay. I powered on a new laptop, the one I bought with the settlement money. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I opened a blank page and wrote the first line. Chapter 1. The forest didn't kill me, they did. I smiled, not in victory, but in peace. The final sentence of my outline read, I didn't ask for them to make it right. I made it true. I closed the laptop, turned off the light, and whispered, they collapsed in court. But I stood up. That's what matters.